Hello, good morning, good evening, everyone. Today is another workshop with Sean, and Sean and Matt today will be telling us some approaches and some activities that you can use during the classroom. So, without further ado, let's welcome Sean and Matt.
All right. Good morning, everybody. I think this is our last workshop for a bit. So after this, you'll get a 3-week break because you'll be in the process of booking your flight on your flight, and then you'll be in quarantine. So there'll be a lot happening. But yeah, good morning, good day, good evening. And while we load our slides, I'll let Sean say a few words.
Sure. So yeah, good evening, everybody, or good morning. Yeah, we won't see you for a few weeks, but thanks for all the work you've been doing on the classroom. We've enjoyed reading your responses and your research there, so it's been very good to see that. And yeah, I mean, we're all in the process of hopefully being in Taipei pretty soon. I know me and Celine are trading stories and all that kind of thing. So I finally got my visa documents in the mail yesterday, expressed it out of here. So I hope to get that back soon because we have our flights booked. Unless they cancel those again, you never know. Yeah, Gary, they canceled us once. So cancel culture, you know, it's everywhere, canceling flights. All right. So Matt, you gonna start us off?
Oh, right. Yes. So this is one of my favorite workshops, and it's all about games and activities, and also how we can relate and introduce these activities that go alongside of our textbooks. So a lot of ETAs, one of the problems I hear a lot is, oh, we only do the textbook. It's so boring. It's so dull. You know, it's just exercise, exercise, exercise. However, even if you're doing the textbook, you can still introduce maybe 5 to 10 minute activities in congruence with the textbook. So a lot of these activities we can pair with whatever exercises in grammar and target languages we're doing in the textbook, and this will help just break up the monotony of textbook English and textbook English only classrooms. So today's overview, we'll gain a virtual hands-on and immersive experience of different language games and activities, and how to adapt these activities to their particular educational context and textbooks. So of course, I would have loved to do this in person, but we have to play the cards we're dealt. So we'll begin with a warm-up discussion. We'll have some rationale. Activity blitz, we'll just, we'll show you a list of some of our favorite activities, and we'll let you select what activities we'd like to go over together. And then we can just finish it up with our wrap-up discussion or a Q&A if there's time remaining. And a little bit about game design. And we will have a future workshop on gamification. So if you're interested in this topic, it will come up more in the future. Okay. So the first principle of game design is ALIA. And ALIA means unpredictability or an element of randomness. So when you play a game, it's this suspense and uncertainty of a game that makes it interesting. So if every variable in our game is known, it's really boring to play. If you know, when you spin the wheel of names, if you know what name it's going to land on, it's boring. It's the fact that we don't know where the wheel is going to land that makes us pay attention. So when you're thinking about activities or where you're looking for activities, really focus on these ones that have elements of ALIA or unpredictability. Then another game design principle is called agone, and agone means competition. So a lot of games you're competing with other people, you're competing with other groups. And in our classroom, we want to make sure this is a healthy competition. So before you start a game, you could remind your class it's just for fun. You know, if somebody gets upset, it's not fun for the whole class. So before and after the game, you and the LET just remind your class, like, this is for fun. No crying if you lose. You know, just be happy. Win or lose, it's a game. Have fun. Cute visuals, right? So visuals are engaging. So anytime you can include images, pictures, especially one that your students are interested in, might be Pokemon visuals or Demon Slayer visuals or SpongeBob visuals. These tend to enhance our games and activities. And last rule, maybe the most important, is keep it simple. Right? So if you're in elementary school, your students are probably at a lower proficiency level than you're expecting. Because of this, you know, you should be able to explain your rules in maybe 3 to 5 steps using simple English. You know, model it, demonstrate it with your LET, and explain it in a few but clear rules. If you have a very complicated game, the students tend to get confused, and when they get confused, they get frustrated pretty quickly, and they're no longer excited to play the game. So if you can keep the rules simple, you can keep the students excited to play their game, because nothing sucks the fun out of playing a game with a 10-minute explanation where the students get lost and frustrated, and then they put their head down and you can't get them back, right? So keep it simple, keep it interesting, and keep it fun. Sean, anything you want to add on game design?
Yeah, so I think simple is really important. At the same time, depending on their age or skill level, if it is a little bit more nuanced, I think that's okay. You just have to make sure you spend a little extra time explaining the rules. And with any game, you want to have like a trial run. You don't want to come out the gate, you know, keeping score and having big expectations when they're just trying out a new game. So yeah, keep it simple. And if you really like it, it's a little more nuanced, a little bit complicated, but you think they'll get it after some practice, go for it. You'll know pretty quickly if they're catching on. But yeah, I mean, spend time if necessary going over all the rules. If you know somebody makes a mistake, it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It just means that a lot of them are probably going to make that mistake. So having one person make the mistake, teach with it, you know, correct it, and then everybody should be on the same page. Yeah, but that's the only thing I would add about that.
Yeah, and if it's a more technical game, that's fine. And if you're investing a lot of time in the instructions and the demonstration, I would reuse that activity, right? Because you've already invested a lot of teacher time in classroom time. So feel free, the next time you play that game, the students, you know, don't need as much instruction. So I think that's one way to offset, you know, more technical game or activity as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think the goal should be to kind of reuse these games over the course of the year. You don't want to have a game that you just play once and it disappears, right? If it was a good game, the students are going to ask for it eventually. But yeah, you don't want to have like 12 different styles of games that you try to play with them. It's probably going to be something like 3 or maybe 4. You don't want to have all these rules intersecting and confusing them. So yeah, you want to have games you're going to use over and over.
Right. So you need like a bag of tricks of, you know, whether it's 4 to 5 games, go to activities. But on the other hand, don't just do the same 1 or 2 every class, because the students will get bored. They need variety in your activities as well. And also, if you're doing like charades every classroom, some students aren't going to like kinesthetic movement classes. Or if you're doing Pictionary every class, some students aren't into art. So the more variety we add to our activities, the more we hit on the diverse learning styles, learning preferences, and those multiple intelligences that different people learn differently. All right, so let's start off with a little discussion. In the chat box, if we could answer question 1. So you kind of did this already in the activity scavenger hunt. But what language games are you already familiar with? If you could just list 2 or 3, I think that'd be pretty good. I Spy, Taboo, Charades, 20 Questions Around the World, Kahoot, awesome. These are all classic ESL games. Hangman, Emotion Verb Combo Game. Sean, do you know what emotion verb combo game is?
I wish. I feel like it would make my life better. I'd like to know what that's about. Should we ask them?
I think we should ask, yeah.
Okay.
That was me. I forget what the actual name is called. I found it on this scavenger hunt, but you have like an envelope of emotions, and it's like what's it called? It's like a veggie off. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. But you have an envelope of emotions and an envelope of verbs, and so you have a student, and he or she picks one out of each one, and then has to act it out, and the students have to guess what it is. So if it were like angry swimming, they'd be like, ah, and the students would have to guess like, oh, angry swimming is what it is. So it's kind of working on vocab, and yeah, that's what it is.
All right, I like that. That's very creative. So you have 2 envelopes. One envelope has like adjectives, and then the other one can be, it could be verbs, or could even be animals. That'd be funny, like angry elephant. And then you have your element of unpredictability. So you don't know what's in the envelope, right? And this creates suspense. The students don't know, and they have to figure out that known. So that's a great activity. Very creative. I think the students would love it. So I've never heard of emotion verb combo game, but I endorse it. You sold me. And then Sean, do you know what Around Town is? Jamie mentioned Around Town.
Yeah, so we're saying around the world and around town. Is that right? Where's Jamie's? Oh yeah. Okay. Jamie, is that like around the world, or is it different? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I think it might be similar to Around the World. Basically, like if you're working on like a town, would have like a library, a grocery store, in like different corners of the room or wherever, and then you would post, and then you would tell the students go to the library or go to the town. And like what I like about it, depending on like the language level, you can say, where would I get books? Where do I go to buy food? Where do I go to mail a letter if you have like a post office? So it can vary amongst like language level, and then you can make it more complex if you want to make a map and like have a scavenger hunt with that as well too.
Awesome. So I love any of these up and moving games. You have different locations: post office, bank, library, restaurant maybe, and then you either tell the students, okay, now go to the library, or you give them hints, where can I buy books? And they have to walk around the classroom. So maybe you do this group by group. So you don't have just 30 students moving at one time, or you could do individual students as well. Yeah, so these are great activities. And again, it brings this classroom language and textbook language to life, right? So instead, when you have these physical movement activities, especially where students get out of their chair, it's taking some abstract grammar point or very abstract target structures that tend to make students disengaged, and it actually brings them to life. They can feel the meaning of these words. They're experiencing the meaning of these words, and it's not just words in a textbook. Awesome.
Maybe we can ask Georgia what she means by around the world, if that differs from around the town.
Yeah, around the town and around the world. I've never heard of around the town. Around the world is more of like, it's a vocab game. So you're sitting just like in your normal seats, and you'll go like, I'll say, I guess this works better if maybe you can act it out or something. But so I was learning Latin, and the teacher would say, oh, like what word is the word for like school, and you have to give it in like Latin or like the target language. And then if the person gets it right, then they keep traveling around like the classroom. And when they get it wrong, they switch seats with the student that gets it right. That makes sense.
Yeah, so it sounds like a game where the L1 is also used. Is that right? So they're also using their native language during the game?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's a whole category of games, I guess. I mean, I like to use them. They can be a lot of fun. And maybe we'll talk about my translation game later. But yeah,
Do you know the Latin for school?
are you asking me?
I don't remember anymore. I've been taking Latin since like high school, so.
That's fine. That's fine. No, I remember playing a similar game in elementary school. I forget if it was math class or like spelling. I think it was we did that with spelling, a spelling quiz where we went around the world. And if you are faster or you get it right, you just go on to the next person. Yeah, so that was a fun game. I remember that one. Telephone, that's always a fun one. Charades, classic, Pictionary, I Spy. Hangman is good. Is there a way we can make Hangman like more G-rated? I don't know if any of you have ideas, like build a snowman instead, or maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe I'm too old school.
Have you gotten complaints before, or this is your thinking?
It's my thinking, maybe.
I can chime in on that.
Okay.
Okay, there you go. Build a spider. Is that a different game, or are you thinking of a variation, Katie? If you just think of, I don't know, like if you know some like number or draw by steps, and usually, you can draw, like if you tell the students, oh, you have these many chances to get the word, and you're thinking you're gonna draw a turtle. So when you tell the students, oh, when I finish drawing the turtle, if I finish drawing the turtle, then that's it. So you can do animals. I used to do that a lot with little ones, but these were like they were 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, so little ones. And it worked. They actually like seeing the animal.
Yeah, I think you'll be surprised at what works, especially elementary school students. They really get into almost any way you gamify the lesson. They get really into it. You'll find junior high school, middle school is a little harder to get that learner buy-in. They're kind of like too cool for school, but it just takes more time to figure out what types of activities that get them excited. So don't give up right away. You have to get to know them and what they respond well to, and just do more of what they respond well to. Red light, green light, very good. Very active activity. Taboo, classic. Simon Says, that's a great one. Kenny, in Taiwan, do we say Simon Says, or do teachers usually play like Teacher Says? I'm just curious.
Yeah, we say teacher says, but I think the rules are pretty much the same.
Yeah, same rules, but instead of Simon, because I don't even know who is Simon, but you can play Simon Says, but it's easier just to use Teacher Says. Cool.
I think it's alliteration that makes it exciting.
That's a good point. So alliteration. Yeah, so either way, I think it doesn't really matter. All right, and then question 2 probably should have been saved for the end of the workshop, but we'll just go with it. Are there any activities that you haven't done and you're really, really excited to try? Go ahead and type it in our chat box. All right, got some great activities. What time is it, Mr. Fox? Eliza, where did you hear about What Time Is It, Mr. Fox?
I'd have to look back through. I mean, I remember playing it as like a really little kid, but I remember, and then I saw it on a website too. So I guess it would probably be for younger kids because it'd be like numbers or it's blanket clock. It's blanket clock. So I guess like learning the time would be a good game for that unit.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect for time. And then maybe if the students really like it, we could find a way to adapt it to other target structures as well. So just replace it. But that's something to think about later. Just so we can reuse these activities that our students respond well to with different target language. Kahoot, yes, as long as you have devices. So I think, Kenny, will most schools have smart devices if you request them beforehand, or is this a school-by-school case?
Do you mean like iPads?
Yeah, like iPads, or if they wanted to play Kahoot, is it possible, like if they request from the computer lab or something?
Yeah, I think it's more like a school-to-school situation. If the school has and you request, of course they can provide, but if the school don't have and you request, they still cannot provide.
Right. So maybe Kahoot could be like a special end of the semester activity because there'll be some additional steps to go through with securing these smart devices. Bananagram with the tiles, so that's always fun. And students, again, they visualize the target language. They visualize the grammar structure. Headbands, a good one, where you put the word on your head and you have to guess what word is on your head. Zoom. Don't know Zoom. Eliza, what is Zoom, the game?
And then when I found it on another, one of the links that other ETAs had provided, all the list of games, and so they got a PowerPoint presentation. They already made these, and they show a picture of something really zoomed in. So like, let's say it's like, this is a coaster. Well, this would be a hard one, but really zoomed in, it looks like that. And kids would have to guess what it is, actually. And so they all guess. You can do this in a variety of ways of how they guess and whether or not they're teams or it's more individual or they write it down or say it out loud. But they guess, and then afterwards you zoom out and show them what it is. So I just thought that was cool, and I thought I would like playing that. So.
Yeah, that sounds really, really creative. Just show them a really zoomed in picture and get them to guess, right? Anytime we get our students to guess, we're eliciting student response, and it's just going to make your class interactive. So activities that don't have guessing, students tend to become disengaged rather quickly. So any form of guessing, this is a great activity, absolutely. And then, yes, I think we saw a similar one in one of the ETF's presentations. And then flower petals and build the spider. Georgia, would you like to explain this a little bit?
I don't actually know if they are, but I thought they sounded interesting, so that's why I wrote them down.
Oh, I think that was in reference to switching out the hangman with something more cute. Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm excited to play those then.
And I think Georgia hit on something important. Our titles can matter a lot. Like if you can hook a student on the activity name, just a little thing can get them excited to play it. And then Evan, would you like to explain the bodybuilding game? That sounds like a pretty cool one.
Yeah, I found it in the activity scavenger hunt and it looked interesting. I think the students are in two teams. One person from each team tries to answer a question about the body. Like the answer is some part of the body, and whoever gets it first gets to roll a die. And then depending on what number they get to draw a part of the body. Like you assign each number to a part of the body beforehand. Now that I say it, it sounded kind of complicated, but I think it could work and it sounds fun.
Yeah, I think I get it. It's interesting, right? So we got a lot of our game design principles here. The dice, that's our element of unpredictability. And the point system here, I believe, is the body parts, right? If you draw a full body, you win.
Right. Yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, so our games, we also need some consistent point system. And this is, usually we just do like one, numbers or something. But this one's interesting because the points are the body parts, similar to flower petals and Build the Spider, right? And then students are racing. We have that element of competition, agong, racing to complete their body part the fastest. And I think this could be a group game as well. One thing we can discuss is this issue of whole class games versus student game, group-centered game. What's the benefit and what's the advantage and disadvantage of whole class games? What's the advantages and disadvantages of group games? So I recommend you do both. You can demonstrate your activity as a whole class. You can have team 1 and team 2. And you can kind of walk through the game together, like a live trial run. And at the end of the game, the students now know how to play. And then you can go from a whole class activity to either a pair game or a group game, right? So then we can go from teacher-centered to a very student-centered classroom where the students are playing on their own and the teachers are kind of just floating, assisting, and supporting the students. So I recommend this transition. You start with a whole class activity, and then you do the same activity just in groups or in pairs. Sean and Celine, anything you would like to add before we move on?
Yeah, let's let Celine get in first, if she has anything.
No, I'm good.
Okay. So in that case, I mean, we've had a good list going, and I see a few different categories. So I think right now might be a good time to think about like purpose with games, because, for example, for something like Simon Says or Teacher Says, that's probably more about attention or controlling the students, getting them to calm down, unless you're just teaching body parts, which you might be for a while, but not for the whole year probably. So that's probably more about reining them in and about attention. But I think we're mostly thinking of like games in terms of like assessment or relating to what we're teaching, right? Maybe there's a time and a place for games that are just a game for game's sake, like a kind of reward, a game that's not connected to the lesson or what you've been teaching. But I think we kind of try to stay away from those nowadays, unless you have a really super fun board game like Operation or something, like, but in general, I think we're thinking in terms of, teaching them how to connect a game to, making it not really seem like a game, making it seem like a learning activity where you're kind of passively checking their assessment on a topic. And so if you are doing something like Hangman, which does get some grief for being kind of passive sometimes, I mean, you want to make sure you're choosing words that you've been teaching recently, target words, because you don't, especially with a big class game, even if you have teams, you don't want to have a game where they can be passive, where the whole back row can sit in the back, and the kids in the front are basically participating and practicing the target skills. So yeah, I mean, I think we should make a distinction between like games for a game's sake and then games that the teacher likes and the teacher thinks are important. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you, Sean. And I think, we can make this separation of content-specific games, like Simon Says, is practicing commands and body parts, like touch your head, that's a command. And then we have more general use activities, which you can kind of plug and play any target language into it. So I think, there's that difference, content-specific activities and general use activities. Today, we're going to focus on general use activities just because we're not going to know your exact context. So if we go too specific with our game and activities, if we do too much content specific, it might not apply to your case. So most of our activities will be general use that hopefully you can plug and play at any point in your textbook. And then, Sean had another great point. When we're thinking about our activities, we want to think about how much student talk time is in our activities. A lot of the most popular activities involve very little student talk time. They're popular because it has the appearance of fun, it has the appearance of learning, but is the whole class engaged? Is the whole class involved, or is it just one or two students at a time? And if you're doing these whole class students with whole class activities with little student talk time, does it benefit the class? So my suggestion for this is you can start with the whole class activity with little student talk time if the goal is to learn how to do the activity, learn the rules, demonstrate it together, and then break it down into a student-centered smaller group activity with lots of student talk time. All right.
Can I make a few other comments just on some of the games that they mentioned that we haven't talked about, just quickly?
Okay, sure.
So, yeah, somebody wrote Jeopardy. I really like that. It takes a bit of teacher preparation because you're at home the night before plugging in the questions to your grid, whether you're going to write it on the board or use some kind of software. But I really like it, especially at the end of a semester or end of a book, end of a term. It's a good way to have them kind of study with you before a test or before an exam, because you can kind of gauge their knowledge. It is a way for you to help them, kind of push them to study more before, but it's also super satisfying for a teacher. And some games aren't really games. They're not really for teachers, right? They're for the students. But in this case, this is a really good marriage of like a game that's satisfying for a teacher and also for the students, because they get competitive. They're in groups, and you can have 5 or 6 different topics. Somebody wrote Pictionary, which is great, and games like Pictionary or Taboo that sometimes have cards, and when we're in a foreign country, maybe we can't get a physical copy of Taboo. We can play these using the whiteboard. Instead of, we'll talk about this later, but instead of having a card with 3 to 5 things, you just write them on the board. You use the board. Same thing with Pictionary. They get up in front of the class and draw their picture in front of everyone. And the only other comment, I know 20 questions or Hot Seat, I think they're similar, if not the same. They're pretty popular. My only beef with a game like that is it puts a lot of pressure on one student in front of everyone. So they're sitting at the front, everybody's looking at them, and they're the ones that have to generate the questions usually, right? Whereas a game like Taboo or Pictionary, it's the whole class that's guessing, that's competitive about answering it first. So that's the only thing I've noticed from my personal experience. 20 questions is really popular with your outgoing students. They want to be seen. Hey, look at me, I'm up in front, we're talking about me or whatever. But for 80% of the class, they don't want to go up there. It's a lot of pressure, especially when they have to speak another language. That doubles the anxiety, right? So that's the only thing I would mention. But those are some great ideas. I'm glad we talked about them.
Yeah, excellent points. And I think, yes, this spotlight effect, right? If we have whole class games, usually it's 1 or 2 students talking at a time, which all eyes are on them. The spotlight effect is increased. The anxiety increases as well. One of the reasons it's important just to have this supportive, positive classroom environment to offset this, because, students are going to be expected to respond in front of the class. However, we can also offset this with our group activities. When you have a small group activity, you no longer have that spotlight effect, and students can just communicate in English to their 2 to 3 pairs in their group. Yeah, those are great points to keep in mind. All right, Celine, feel free to chime in.
Yeah, I just want to add to your last point. About like the 20 question games and the Hot Seat game. You have to have a lot of control. Like your management has to be on point for this if you're gonna have groups doing it at the same time, so that you control the timer, so that every student gets a turn and every student gets to talk in their groups. So they're they're still playing the game, but there's no spotlight at the front. And a lot of these, once they know it, they can go off on their own and play with them with their a small group. So you can do like the mini versions of it. So yeah, just you have to get a little bit creative. You have to think about the logistics, but some of them you can do them, in small groups.
Yeah, I like that. Mini versions. Yeah, start with the big version, and then you can break it down into the mini version of the activity. Great. All right, let's keep going, I think. All right, so we'll continue our discussion. Why use games in the classroom? Let's focus on the benefits of games. So take maybe 30 seconds to think about, why do we even use games? Well, shouldn't we just be memorizing vocabulary, memorizing grammar? So take 30 seconds and then type a brief bullet points into our chat box. Right, a lot of awesome responses. And I must say, all of you have been very on point with your tasks and assignments. I've been very impressed just with the thought you've been putting into everything. You guys are all amazing. Unleash the power of play. Cool. Games are the universal language that everyone can connect to. That's awesome. Change up pace, absolutely. Because if we're just drilling and killing, sit and drill, textbook, it's just a boring class. But one simple game can just change the whole dynamic. You can do the textbook 30 minutes and then finish with a 10 to 15 minute game. And, that's a great balance. Provides different avenues for language acquisition. Absolutely, that's a great point, Alexia, right? So our activities can involve art or music or dancing or kinesthetic. And we can also kind of experience the language and interact, play with it, manipulate the language itself through these activities. Sean, any comments? These are some great stuff I'm reading here.
Yeah, great points. I liked Alexia's point as well. I like Dana's approach because it's a bit psychological and this kind of emotional, psychological things that we don't really think about as teachers. But she says students get to actually use the vocabulary. They have positive feelings about the subject. So some kind of osmosis happens that's not really stated, but where students have this positive feeling about the content because they played a game without even realizing this kind of transition, this kind of alchemy that's happened. So I like that. We don't usually talk a lot about the psychology too much of teaching, but I think it's really interesting that she has this takeaway. So that's what I've noticed so far.
Yeah, we usually don't talk about alchemy either.
It's a Wednesday night here in California.
But yeah, absolutely on point. So if your students are excited to come to class, they're going to be lifelong English learners. So always keep that in mind. The more positivity that's in your classroom, the more engagement, high engagement, the more fun that is happening. The learning is not just going to be in the classroom walls, but it's going to carry over hopefully for the rest of their life. So we're really hooking them, right? Have a positive classroom English experience to get them to fall in love with the English language so they're not scared to use it, right? They have positive attitudes towards the language, which they should carry with them for years to come. All right, and then, with the good always comes the bad. So let's think about how might games negatively affect or impair our classrooms. So what are some of the downsides to using games in our classrooms? So again, take about 30 seconds to collect your thoughts, and then just drop us a couple lines, bullet points in the chat box.
So we're getting some really good responses, guys. I like Quincy. Yeah, so you might have participation issues. We've talked about multiple intelligences. Students have different strengths. So in my case, I'm terrible at drawing. So when we play Pictionary, if they ever try to get me involved, I'm always, I'm always looking for a way out. So I mean, when we teach, we can remember what we were like as students. We have our strengths and weaknesses, and so when we're talking about participation, we want to make sure we're not doing the same game over and over again, like Matt said at the outset, right? We don't want to just have 1 to 2 games in our toolkit. You're going to start off like that at the beginning when you get there, but you want to build up and have, a healthy amount, maybe 4, maybe 5, maybe 6. And if you want to play a game on the fly, you got to remember, okay, last week we did taboo, so we can't do taboo today. Because if you do that, students will be like, oh, we did that last week, right? So part of that is about variety, right? So the way to get over the participation problems or the students that, few students that pretend that they don't like games is by mixing it up. You say, hey, you like drawing, so what, you like Pictionary, right? So yeah, multiple intelligences, having something for everyone. They're not all gonna like the same game usually. If you do have a game that they all love, that's awesome, but it's pretty rare. I mean, you're gonna have, students have bad days, just like teachers. They're not gonna wanna play a game sometimes, even if it's their favorite. What else did you see, Matt? It's probably some new responses.
Yeah, a lot of great responses. I like students may try to win or get without mastery, right? They just might focus on the game and forget about the language point. So I think this is a good point, that when we design our games and activities, make sure the language is so embedded in the activity that it's really hard, maybe not impossible, but really, really hard to play the activity without the language component. Because yeah, Luke's right. If students can play the game without using the language, they're going to just play the game, right? They're kids. They want to have fun. You can't really blame them. Also, yeah, some students, they like independent learning. Some students may not even like group work. They just want to sit and write the target language. So some students are going to learn best that way. So what is one way that, let's say, like we have this really high energy activity, and it finishes and we have 5 minutes left in class. How would you wind down the class in that situation? Sean?
So you said you have 5 minutes left and the kids are very hyper.
Yeah.
What game to choose?
Well, you already finished the game. So what's the
Okay.
one that, we don't want them to walk away like with too much energy and, oh, English is just, this chaos, right? So how can we ground them before we leave the classroom?
I don't know. I mean, let's see. If the game finishes on a really high note, that's a good thing because it depends as well, right? So if it's at the end of the day, they're going home to their parents. Some parents like to see their kids really hyped up and excited and talking about their English class and how fun it was. But I mean, it depends if they have like the science class next with the strict science teacher and he's not going to want to see them screaming and stuff. You want to make your life easier and not upset the science teacher. So you might have an activity where you have them cooling down, maybe some kind of breathing thing, standing up and doing something together. 5 minutes is short, but when I was observing elementary school in California about 1.5 years ago, they now have like meditation time and yoga time for elementary school students, like in public schools. So I was pretty shocked by that. But obviously 5 minutes is not enough time to get out the yoga mats. But it's good to have tricks for calming them down, whether it's separating individual students or doing some kind of activity that's like actually a breathing exercise disguised as something else. But yeah, it depends. It depends on the situation. Are they going to lunch? Let them be amped up a little bit, or are they going to the next class?
Peony, would you like to chime in on this? You had a great response.
Sure. Yes, Emily and I shared something very, very similar in the chat, so great minds. I think what I would do is use the opportunity to have the students reflect upon not only the game itself, but also on what they learned. So in terms of reflecting on the game, I could ask them, oh, what do you think went well? How would you change this game for next time? So that it shows that the students have a say in the kind of activities that they do in the classroom. I think that would be really fun, especially because we talked about how we should only have a handful of games that we use on reserve consistently. Teachers should always collect feedback that way. And then in terms of what they learn from the class, that's just a good, I think, way to discern whether or not they've mastered or gotten to know this subject, and you can reevaluate if maybe you need to revisit the topic again the next lesson.
Absolutely. So kind of combine some assessment with reflection. And that reflection can guide our instruction, and it can also help learners have that kind of metacognition to process their own learning and their own growth as well. So I think reflection is often neglected, I would say, in classrooms, especially in Taiwan and the language classrooms I've seen. But reflection is a vital part of learning. And not just learning, but developing and growing as well. So yeah, I'm a fan of reflection. And I would say you can do this in Chinese in their L1 because it's probably hard for the students to reflect and process the game using English. You could try. It's probably going to be basic, but they're going to have a deeper processing and reflection if you use their native language. And I would apply this to culture as well. If you have a cultural activity, the end should be a reflection. Have them process it. And I really think the L1 is okay to process and reflect, especially cultural related things, or especially things that if you're doing the English, the reflection is just going to be surface level, right? So when we reflect, we want a deep processing of it. And probably a lot of people will disagree with me on this point that we can use the L1 and the native language as a vital tool in our language classroom if done appropriately and at the appropriate time, and we don't overdo it. And I would also add, we can just have a writing task. If you have a really high energy activity, calm them down, as Sean said, do a simple breathing activity, and then they can have 5 minutes to do a workbook writing task, right? That will just ground them as well. All right, let's keep going, unless Celine or Sean have anything else to add.
Yeah, Celine's idea about the exit ticket is really good. So yeah, something to get out of the classroom, whether it's a physical piece of paper or they have to say something, they have to stand up and do something. But yeah, get them thinking. I'm not off the hook yet. Like, we just played a game, but I'm not, we still got to check for comprehension.
Absolutely. And one of the great things about code teaching and exit tickets is it's twice as easier. So you can have, students go to ETA or LET, and the teachers are checking the comprehension of the activity. Whatever target structure you practice in that game, you're going to one-on-one ask the student the question. The student has to answer before they can leave the classroom. So exit tickets, especially exit tickets using your code teacher, it just breaks the class in half, is a great way to individually assess students to make sure that they learned something during our game or activity. Right. And then, all right, so why use games in the classroom? We touched on most of these already. So games are fun and engaging. They're going to increase student motivation. It's going to keep our students' minds active, and it's going to lower that affective filter, right? So that's Krashen, who says that stress and anxiety and these negative emotions kind of interfere with learning. And games also tend to be cooperative. Students are going to develop social skills. They're also going to develop coping skills. How do you deal with losing? The classroom is an opportunity for students to learn to grow socially and cope with losing in a supportive and positive environment. So you're going to have tears sometimes. If you play a game, there's going to be 1 or 2 students from time to time that might cry when they lose. This doesn't mean you never play that game again, because you, in a supportive environment, you're helping that student process what just happened. The next time you play the game, they'll cry less and less, right? Now through a game, you've helped them grow socially. Games tend to have high student talk time. It's not just the student lecturing or talking at the class. The students are involved in the lesson itself. Games tend to be communicative. It encourages creativity and spontaneous use of language. It develops fluency. And fluency usually comes before accuracy, if we ever fully achieve accuracy in the target language. And then games are also, they validate learner identity. So it creates a meaningful context for language production, and it personalizes responses, so the students get to say what's on their mind, right? They get to share their personality in their response and the activity itself. All right, go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I like mentioning student talk time. And you'll know a game is really good or when it's going really well when you're almost not talking, right? When the students know how to play the game, they're anticipating who's next. The kid is coming up to the front already. You didn't have to call on anybody. Even maybe the student wants to grab a pen and add a point to their score because they got something right. So that's like game mastery, right? That's when things are going really well. Students, I mean, you're just there, kind of writing the word on the board, but you don't even really have to speak sometimes for really a game that's running really well. But yeah, a great point as well about communicative goals, right? I think sometimes we get caught up in accuracy, and at least what I find the best is when we focus on fluency, right? And it's really tempting as a teacher because we can be a little bit perfectionist and we're so used to correcting. Sometimes we probably overcorrect. We're correcting too much in the moment. And there's a lot of research that suggests it's really a bit destructive to correct all the time in the moment with students. I've come across teachers that carry around like a little notepad with them, and when they hear mistakes, they jot it down. They don't interrupt the flow of the class, and if they bring it up, they bring it up at the end of class. You know, when they're going to talk about a few mistakes they heard. So yeah, definitely. I know we're really tempted to be like, oh, that's not correct. Don't say that, and we want to help them. It comes from a good place for sure. But language is all about fluency. It's not about mistakes. I mean, native speakers make mistakes. I mean, look, people you talk to in the United States that say they're native speakers. I mean, you know, people make mistakes. Yeah, we'll get into like world Englishes another time. But there's all different styles and types of English that are fine.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with Sean, especially English as a global language. What is accurate English anymore? Nobody really knows. It's just evolving at a global scale, right? So when we play games, I would say you should guide them to have a correct response. They shouldn't get it wrong and their team loses a point, right? So the point system ideally is randomized. So you guide them and support them until they get the right answer. And with a randomized point system, we can accomplish this. So I think this is the one way where we're not punishing them for making mistakes or errors, but guide them until they get it right. Or you have a time pressure. So if they don't, you know, the mistake is not saying something in, you know, the countdown limit or something like that, or they guess wrong, that's fine. But we want to minimize punishing them for language mistakes. And I think, you know, when we talk about different game principles are a great way to do this. The mistakes come from rolling a dice wrong, or, you know, guessing the charades wrong or guessing the picture wrong. The mistakes aren't being generated from the language production, because we want language production. And the more language production, it actually makes our activities more exciting. So that's an important principle to keep in mind, that you don't design activities that punish language production. Yeah, and breathing exercises, great ways to calm a class down. Excellent. Breathe in. Yeah. And students respond well to that. They know they're too excited. So you'll see they actually want to calm down, which is kind of cute. All right, I think we can skip this. We're running out of time. Quick word of caution on the importance of clear instructions. Bad instructions waste time. Clear instructions prevent lesson breakdowns. Amazing activities become amazing disasters with unclear instructions. Clear instructions actually help students process the language. And understanding and following along has a motivating effect for students. So when you design your activities, think about how are you going to explain it using simple English? How are you going to demonstrate and model the activity? So you're not just commentating how to play, but you're demonstrating in a way that students understand intuitively and follow along. If they intuitively understand your directions, they're going to process the language on their own. All right. Avoiding chaos, clear instructions, speak clearly, simply, and slowly. Elaborate your input with visuals and gestures as needed. Model your instructions. Demonstrate your activity with your co-teacher and your students. Get your students' attention. Don't talk over a noisy class. Begin when they are silent. So if you talk over a noisy class, you're teaching your students that it's okay to talk while you're talking. Arrange student groups and furniture before giving instructions. Avoid handing out worksheets or materials before giving instructions. So if you hand out the stuff before you give instructions, the students are just going to be playing with the things and not listening to instructions. Break instructions down into simple steps. give students a time limit, right? So they know, okay, focus on this game for 10 minutes. It helps them keep attention on task. And then check for understanding as you explain the activity. Try to avoid asking, do you understand questions, because students will just say yes, and they don't really understand. Ask concept question instead. All right, go ahead, Sean.
Right. So yeah, it's really important, like you say, it's really important for students to understand what they're hearing about the instructions, but also to understand by watching. And so that's why you have to perform it, to demonstrate it physically. Because in my case, I'm a much better learner when I see or when I do. So just hearing is not enough, and you're going to have students that just get anxiety when they're hearing, they're being told the instructions, but they haven't seen it yet. So they're just like, oh, what do I do? What do I do? And great points about the instructions, or if there's something to give out. What makes games fun is the anticipation, right? Besides just the reward of winning and, look at me, I won. It's all about anticipation. And this is not just with games, but with assignments or projects. When you have papers to give out, it's always better just to kind of keep them in your hand, walk around the room explaining, because students will see you holding something like, oh, what is that? What does he have? What are we doing next? And without thinking about it, they're already engaged and like, oh, okay, I better pay attention, right? So yeah, great points, simple steps, time, and yeah.
All right, go ahead, Celine.
Sorry. Really quick, I know we tend to do this a lot. I know I did it at the beginning. Like, I wanted to create, these super awesome games or use these really fun activities, but they were complicated. I quickly realized, that it's hard. So keep it simple. Sometimes simple activities can be fun. I mean, Simon Says, the kids love that. So keeping it simple, don't think, oh, that's too boring. The kids like it. Just try it and see what's the reaction. And then about checking for understanding, this is something I mentioned in my workshop, I think last time or at some point, about using the L1. You can have students turn to each other, find a partner, and you say, okay, people on the right, you are the teachers. Can you translate all like the instructions, or can you explain the game to your partner in Chinese? So you can always rely on that, and your LET can help you out and make sure that the students are able to repeat those back to their partner. If you see just blanks, then something is wrong.
Absolutely, excellent point, Celine. Yeah, I've made this mistake. I thought, oh, this activity is going to be a home run, and I put hours into preparing and making this, crafts and all these complex parts, and like the whole time, oh, my students are going to love this, and I go to do it, and I spent all the time prepping the activity that I forgot to think about, how am I going to explain this activity? I just got caught up in the excitement of this awesome activity, and there was too many moving parts. The students got confused, and it was a disaster, right? When a simple but interesting activity could have saved me a lot of time, there will still be the same level of enjoyment and engagement and learning. So sometimes less is more. We don't have to have these grand, complicated activities with tons of moving parts, because they tend to confuse students, and they're also hard to explain. So always think about how you're going to explain and demonstrate these activities. But I think now would be a good time for a break. We'll go ahead and take a 10-minute break. So that would be, it's 10:37 a.m. here. So let's meet back at 47, whatever time zone you're in. It should end in 47, I believe. All right, so see you guys in 10 minutes. All right, Sean, are you ready?
Already, let's go.
Kenny, are you ready?
Yes, yes.
All right, so let's keep moving. Probably spend 10 more minutes discussing activities, and then the last 30 minutes we'll be sharing activities that you can try. So the next task is to simplify instructions. For example, how would you simplify this? This is kind of, a lot of new teachers, they like to commentate. They just narrate what they're doing as they're doing it. Now I'm writing on the board this sentence, and again, students are learning to ignore you when you commentate too much. So we want to be clear with our English so that students are paying attention to every word that we say. So how would you simplify the following? Now, I would like for you to get out a piece of paper and put it on your desk. So if you could just chat a more simplified way to say this, we'll see who can get the closest to the right answer. The right answer. Georgia says, take out a piece of paper. Any other ideas? Please put one piece of paper on your desk. Please put a paper on your desk. Good. Please take out a piece of paper. Very good. All your answers are much clearer and more simple than the example. So let's go ahead and see what the answer is on our sheet. Yeah, Georgia got it. Take out a piece of paper. Actually, all your answers are good. I think all yours are acceptable. But take out a piece of paper, right? And anytime, take out your textbook. You know, students are going to process this language internally on their own. But I would be consistent. So if you're going to use put or get, use it the same time every time. So either take out or put a piece of paper. Take out might be the best because you can also use it with textbook. Take out your textbook, put a textbook on your desk. You know, it sounds a little weird. All right, let's do the next one. Please is a good way to model politeness. Absolutely. Next one. Once the paper is on the desk, could you please write down 5 questions using the present continuous tense? All right, this one's a little harder. So how could we simplify the next set of instructions? Awesome. So you guys, you're all on point. Yes, these are all great ways to simplify instructions, and you have some very good points. I like this ing, right? Ing verbs. Do students really need to know the grammatical term present continuous tense, or does this just complicate the language classrooms? So I would endorse the view that we can also simplify how we're categorizing and labeling our grammar points as well. So I'm a big fan of, ing verbs, right? Write 5 questions using ing verbs. Excellent. So this example had write down 5 questions using the present continuous tense. So I think Avery and Evan, I would say yours is a little better for me at least, because ing verbs, it's intuitively explaining the grammar. So students are more able to follow along with ing verbs and say present continuous tense. And this is important the higher you go. So you probably won't be at high school, but imagine when you do like the present perfect continuous tense, you know, that's just confusing to think about. All right, let's keep going. Next one. All right, number 3. Now that you have written 5 questions, I would like for you to fold the paper in half. All right, very good. Georgia, you're always number 1.
You mean she's the first? They're all number 1, Matt. Come on.
Yes. They're all number 1. She's the fastest. All right, so we have some just staying with the command, fold the paper in half, and some using like a transition with next or now. So I think both are okay. Let's see what our example has. Yes, so Georgia, fast and on point. Fold the paper in half, but you all are right, I would say. Yeah, you can include additional simple words, now or next. All right, last one. Now, when I turn on the music, please pass your paper to the person on the left, and I would like for you to continue passing your papers until the music stops. All right, this is another hard one. Go ahead, take your time, and then write your answer in the chat box. All right, again, some excellent answers. So you guys are doing a great job of condensing all this wordiness and kind of narration and commentating into very clear, logical, and comprehensible English that our students can follow along. When the music starts, pass the papers to the left until it stops. Pass each paper to the left until the music stops. All very good answers. While the music is playing, keep passing papers to the left. Good. Then we got our ing verbs there. All right, and let's see what our answer is. Oh, a little wordy. When the music starts, pass your papers to the left. Continue passing your papers until the music stops. So I think you guys had better answers. What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that one's tricky because there's basically 2 instructions in one, if you think about it, right? Yeah, the ones they wrote look much better, shorter.
And just the general point, keep your instructions simple, clear. This way your students follow along and they don't learn to ignore you. When we commentate and narrate, they're learning that, okay, you lost me, I'm not going to pay attention. Wake me up when the game starts. All right, next slide. All right, so what we kind of are going to do next is, you guys did a great job sketching and outlining your textbook. And for me, my co-teacher would turn to me maybe the day or 2 days before a lesson and say, Matt, we're doing blah, blah, blah in the textbook. Can you develop a phonics activity for it? So I was always asked to do one of 4 activities from the textbook, which I'll list here. Kenny, click. Okay, so I'd asked to do a phonics or vocabulary activity or dialogue practice. You know, the textbook chapters usually start with the dialogue, or a sentence practice. There's also cultural components, but those are, you know, not so much game and activity oriented. It's just sharing something from your culture using visuals and pictures in authentic material if you have it. So what we did here is, okay, next, you can skip this. So yeah, I'm sure you're all ready for games. So we divided our activities, a basic set of activities, into 4 categories based on what you probably will find in whatever textbook you're using. So we have some phonics games, vocabulary games, dialogue games, and sentence practice games. So we'll probably take the next 20 minutes to go over maybe 4 or 5. We won't have time for all of these, but we're going to share this as a resource so you can go over it on your own time. When your LET turns to you, hey, I need a vocabulary activity, you can turn to this slide and presentation and hopefully have some resources at your disposal. So go ahead and take a moment to look over this list of activities. And if there's any that pop out at you, if there are any that you would like to discuss, let's focus on the ones that pop out for you. So take a couple seconds, think about which ones you would like to learn a little bit more about in a little more detail. And then when you pick one, go ahead and submit it in our chat box. All right, so Avery likes phonics. We got finger twister. See a lot of space fruit. Team hot seat. Oh, bust the blocks. Banana, phonics chess, banana bomb, spoon phonics, banana bomb, junk and sticks. Okay, it's a pretty good list. I think we can cover most of these. What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, but maybe should we start with some of the most requested?
All right, so Kenny is choosing for us, I think, our MC Kenny. Banana bomb, also known as the bomb game. Traditionally, this activity is you have your vocab. You're going to have a picture of your vocab on the screen. Pictures are going to flash on the screen. Students have to repeat the vocabulary. And then when they see a bomb, they have to stand up as fast as they can and shout bomb. Very simple game. However, I don't really like bombs that much in our classroom. Maybe again, I'm too old school or new school, whatever it is now. So what I did is I inserted banana instead of bomb because, elementary school students, they think bananas are funny. John's shaking his head. So I would flash vocabulary on the screen. Students are going to repeat the vocabulary within a target sentence. However, when a banana is flashed, students stand up and shout banana as fast as they can. And you can give team points to whatever team does it the fastest. You can give a few points. Just the point system will encourage engagement and motivation for the task. So for example, it could be how's the weather? You have the whole class orally recite, everyone, how's the weather? And they repeat, how's the weather? And then you show them pictures, so they would shout, it's cloudy, it's sunny, it's rainy, it's sunny, it's cloudy. And you can pause and build suspense because suspense is that element of unpredictability or alia. All right, and now they have to stand up and shout banana, right? And younger learners, they get really, really into this. You'll be surprised. They jump out of their chairs just to yell banana. So it's pretty fun, easy activity, pretty low prep. And it's a general use. It's plug and play. Doesn't have to be how's the weather. Could be what food do you like? And they could be shouting, I like pizza. So any target language you can insert. So this is the banana game. Are there any questions on the banana game? It's even, all right. So Jamie, do you play Mario Kart?
I used to when I was younger, but if COVID restrictions allow, I know they have like a Mario Kart arena in Japan. So if we can travel there, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, so I actually did that once in Tokyo. You dress up as a Mario Kart character and you get little go-karts and you're on the streets of Tokyo. It's pretty wild. But yes, this goes back to the banana is cute, right? Anytime we can add cute visuals, it's going to enhance our game activity. Just a simple thing like using a cute banana is going to get our students excited. Sean, any questions or comments on the banana game?
No, I like the banana game. I mean, you don't want students jumping up and screaming bomb and like have other teachers or the principal walking by. I don't know what they're like in Taiwan, but in the US, yeah, we don't love the bomb threats. So yeah, good choice of the banana, keeping it peaceful, no hangman, no bombs. I like it.
So Kenny, we actually did this for Christmas. Kenny was my clicker. Do you remember that, Kenny?
Yeah.
Did we do banana or did we do something else?
I don't remember banana, but I also forgot what you did in the end.
Stinky tofu.
Kenny wasn't paying attention. Okay, so that's the banana game. Again, it's a vocabulary practice. You can level up by having students say a whole sentence, right? So depending on your student's level, you could even do it twice. The first time, it's just repeating the vocabulary. The second time, we're inserting the vocabulary into a full sentence.
Oh, sorry. I think I remember. I think you did ho, ho, ho because it's Christmas.
Ah, so we had a Santa Claus. If they saw Santa Claus, they had to stand up and say ho, ho, ho. Okay, that's right. That's right. And then make sure you're including the question, how's the weather, right? So in between rounds, everybody, how's the weather? And then go through the list because Q&A questions make conversation. We don't just want to do the answers and we just don't want to do the questions. We need to give students the ability to communicate. And communicating involves using questions and the answers. All right, Sean, which one do you think we should do next?
Oh, let's see the chat. Okay. Yeah, I mean, maybe we don't have to spend too much time on it, but finger twister is a good idea. I mean, it's not really practical to have them play a full body twister, especially if they're at a certain age. They probably don't want to be near each other, cooties and all that. But yeah, I think this is a good one, right? Have you used this before, Matt? Did you use this last year?
Yeah, Peony has a nice, cute idea for Halloween. Yeah, you can adapt it. So if it's Halloween, it could be a ghost and they yell boo, right? Or trick or treat. I don't know. So yeah, use your own creativity and have some fun with it. So great ideas there. Love it. Finger twister is an easy one. All you're doing is, it's not a full body twister, but each student this is an individual activity. You can even use just your textbook. So the vocabulary page should have like 8 vocabulary words on the page. And you're going to call out a vocabulary word, and students are going to put one of their fingers on that word, right? And then you're going to call out a second word, and the students have to touch the second word with their finger. And this whole time, the students have to repeat after you. Then you're going to call out a third word, and then the students have to touch the third word with any finger they want. And then you go until 5 words. And if students after 5 rounds can touch every word, they get a point, or their team gets a point. The next round, we can take it to the next level. The next round, you could have the students call out the words, right? So now you have students calling out the words, the whole class repeating, and they're just touching their finger on the vocabulary word. Very simple game. It's interactive, it's physical, and it takes like a boring, monotonous repeat after me drill, and it enhances it with just simple engagement.
I was also seeing a few requests for Janken sticks and also something phonics. A lot of phonics or anything phonics.
All right, so before we skip to that, here's an example of what a finger twister vocabulary sheet might look like. Just a simple grid with, this is 9 vocabulary words. So vocabulary words, we never want to do too many. So usually the memory can handle 7 plus or minus 2. So usually 6 to 8 is a good number. 7 plus or minus 2, because we don't want to overwhelm our students. We don't want to give them too many words to memorize and then they memorize none. But again, a very simple, quick, and easy activity. You can insert any vocabulary that you want to do. Now you have a go-to vocabulary activity. All right, let's go to Janken sticks. Might be my favorite activity, actually. So good choice, whoever chose Janken sticks. When I was teaching in Japan, funny story, this was a top secret activity. So one of my colleagues shared this activity with me, but he told me, you can't share this with anybody else. I said, why not? He said, this activity is too effective. It's the secret that makes me a good teacher. And if everybody's doing it, nobody's going to think I'm a good teacher anymore. So this was considered a top secret activity that I wasn't allowed to share. However, I'm going to share it with all of you because, it's not about us as teachers. It's about the students, right? Does anybody know what the word Janken means? I have a lot of secrets, Sean. So Janken is a Japanese word that means rock, paper, scissors. So rock, paper, scissors. And instead of rock, paper, scissors, we're going to change this chant, rock, paper, scissors, shoot. We're going to change that into an English chant. And we're going to have Janken sticks. I have one right here. So I cut out these little, what are these, like twisty ties? I cut out twisty ties in half, and I'm going to give each student 3 of these. And these are going to be our point system, right? So students are going to play rock, paper, scissors. If they win, the loser has to give the winner 1 stick, and they gain a point. And they're just going to walk around the room playing rock, paper, scissors with us, trying to collect as many what I call junk and sticks as possible. So some examples, instead of rock, paper, scissors, shoot, we can do, next slide, Kenny. Okay, so here's some pictures in action. You can see they're holding the sticks, and it's very interactive. It gets students up out of their seats, gets them moving around. They get really into it. See, all right, so what we can do, instead of rock, paper, scissors, shoot, we can have, what time do you get up? What time do you get up? What time do you go to school? What time do you go to bed? And a lot of different target languages we can insert into this basic rock, paper, scissors chant. So next slide, Kenny. For your lower levels, like your second graders or third graders, you can do a simple hello, hello, how are you? Hello, hello, what's your name? Hello, hello, what food do you like? What sports do you like? And then they're going to play that with each other, and the loser is going to have to answer the question. My name is blah, 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 and they give the winner the stick. Very simple game. You can also play it as a whole class. And this is something we can demonstrate in our in-person workshops, so you can experience it for yourself. But at its heart, it's adapting the rock, paper, scissors chant to a target language English chant, and using anything as a token or a point system to collect. But it's an important point. You always want to have extras in case a student goes to 0. Just give them more. Like, we don't want students to be out and sit down. So if a student runs out of junk and sticks, just give them some more and they can keep playing.
Yeah, Matt, do you wanna go over one more game, or should we just give them some time to ask questions? I mean, I think we want to give them at least 10 minutes to ask questions. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do one more game, and then we'll open it up to a Q&A forum.
Evan wants space fruit.
Space fruit. All right. Space fruit is an interesting game. What we're doing with space fruit is a memory game, actually. So space fruit is going to pair a random picture, in this case, fruit. We're going to pair fruit with our vocabulary words. I think it's a little confusing here. I should have done a non-food related vocabulary. So probably would have been better, like, let's say sports, but I'll change that for next time. But you're going to say, if I say watermelon, you say rice. Watermelon, rice. If I say apple, you say tea. Apple, tea. Watermelon, rice. And you're going to go through about 5 pictures with this. You're going to associate a picture with a vocabulary word, and then you're going to practice, and then we're going to remove the vocabulary words. So it's just going to be the fruit, right? So the students are going to see a picture of an apple, and they have to shout out tea, or you'll show kiwi, and they have to shout out water. So I have a video of this game so you can see it in action. Kenny, on the next slide, if you want to go to that link. All right, so again, a pretty simple game, but you can see I had a whole class response. And actually, at the end of that day, I was still quizzing students. Walking out of school, I would say banana, and they would be like ice cream, or I'd say apple, tea. So after the end of the day, they still remember this. So anytime you can add like a memory challenge to your activities, it also increases that suspense and engagement. After this, I broke it up into 2 teams, and we had individuals from the teams who would race to say the word the fastest. So we turned this into a team game. We went from a whole class game to a team game. So this is Space Fruit. I'll share this PowerPoint with you. And again, you can insert any vocabulary you want, and you can actually insert any pictures you want. It could be space animals, maybe, I don't know, space something. My brain's not working right. But that's Space Fruit. And again, the point is we're taking a simple vocabulary drill and we're adding some creativity into it. We're adding more engagement, and we're just making it more interactive and fun. But we'll leave all our activities lists for you later so you can read through them, and feel free to reach out to us anytime if you have questions on any of these activities. But yeah, let's open up the last 10 minutes for a little forum. Any questions or thoughts or comments on anything we've discussed today, or any questions that you have, feel free to chime in and ask us.
Or we can also ask Celine about her favorite game. What's her go-to?
So when I was teaching elementary school, I used a lot of PowerPoint-based games. I found out quickly that that's what students like, and they loved bomb games. It's a little bit different from the banana one. But yeah, they love that word for some reason, and nobody ever complained about it. But yeah, it always got the students like, well, I have maybe 5 at least different templates for PowerPoint games. Maybe one day we can do a workshop where I can introduce those, and I think Matt, you also might have some. Yeah, I really like those. Eventually, as I started teaching adults, I moved away from those and I started doing more communicative style activities, which I used a lot of more like I prepared stuff on paper so that students, talk to each other. Every once in a while, I did go back to those bomb games, and it would still bring that high energy. Let me talk about the telephone one, because you can do a variation on that one with you can do telephone and charade kind of together. And then if you get, this is where, you can do this because again, there's no speaking in there, but it gets the students thinking in a different way. Remember in the other word, I mentioned something about, students accessing a different way to communicate, and body language is a huge part of that. So it doesn't even have to be the little ones, even the older ones get into it. And if you have teams going on at the same time, you see me trying to understand, and then you start seeing where the communication breaks down, if it does, and it's really fun. Oh gosh, I could go on about other stuff, but yeah, those are hopefully, yeah, like I said, maybe we can do one where we use PowerPoint as our templates. You would have never thought that you can make a game on a PowerPoint, but yes, you can.
And also, Matt, it might be helpful for them to have an idea of how LETs in general think about games. I mean, are they somewhat open to them? Do they love them? Are they hard to convince to do games, or is it the full spectrum? What are they up against with the LETs?
Kenny, you want to take this one?
Oh, sure. I think it also depends on the LEDs. Maybe if your LED is more young or new to the school, I think they are pretty much really open to these. But I think some ETs before, they also have some more elder not elder, but senior LETs, and they're also pretty convinced. But I think the point will be having a balance on like formal classes and the activities, so that the children, the kids, and the teachers don't think that it's all playing around and not doing like actual learning. Yeah, I think this will be a point, having a balance on the activities and the teaching.
Yeah, that brings us back to where we were in the beginning, right? So when we're choosing games or when we're designing games, we want to be doing it for a reason, not just simply as a reward, but also to test their comprehension or to assess them, right?
Yeah, it's definitely, there's a generational thing with how receptive they are in terms of their teaching style. But I also think it can be a good thing if you have a more traditional teacher, because as Kenny says, then you're going to have the balance, right? The balance is going to be there. If you're bringing the fun activities and then you have a more traditional teacher, you know, who's strict and doing like more writing and passive activities, you're naturally going to have a good balance and flow in your classroom. You can be the game guru, right? The game master. It can actually, I think, complicate things if both teachers love games, right? Because then it can be hard to just control the class, settle them down. So in a way, I think, you know, if you're paired with a more traditional teacher, find a way to have that balance. And I think it can be a more well-rounded classroom in the end. So don't get discouraged at first if your teacher isn't receptive to these. Because again, think about the overall student experience. I think they can have a better learning experience if it's balanced. You know, co-teachers with different teaching styles benefit students.
Anyone else have any general questions about games in the class?
Yeah, and feel free to type your questions if you don't want to speak, or raise your hand on the little clicking thing.
I'll just make a quick comment on games. They're fun. They will take energy from you, so just be prepared for that. You know, if you have, you know, if you're teaching the same class or the same lesson 5 times back to back, your energy might, you know, it might get drained if it's a very high energy game. So just be aware of that. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do games. I'm just saying be aware of that, especially, you know, since you're coming in as new teachers.
Yeah, and you'll find elementary school can be exhausting. So elementary school, I find, is easier to lesson plan because you can quickly apply like any of these games and activities to, like, if you're doing fruits or vegetables, sports or weather. It's kind of simple sentence structures, but the trade-off, it tends to be more exhausting. Students have so much energy, and you know you're responding to their energy, and at the end of the day, you're wiped out. Junior high school, you know, it's not as exhausting, but it can be harder to lesson plan because it's harder to use like plug and play activities just to fill up a whole lesson plan. Like, you know, doing the PPP with elementary school is, you know, pretty simple to design a lesson. But junior high school, it can be harder. How do you make, you know, a lesson on the conditional engaging? You have to put some more thought into that. But on the other hand, it's less exhausting at the end of the day.
Yeah, and that's where sequencing is important, right? So if you're gonna have a really involved game where it's moving around a lot, you're talking a lot, probably before that you don't want to be doing something where you're also lecturing at all or talking a lot. Maybe they have some quiet writing time for 20 minutes, And hopefully they know like something fun is coming after, so you have a little rest time. You can get your oxygen up, and you're ready for a wild end to the lesson. Or coffee. No, a little coffee. All right, so what do you say? We're at about 8:30. If anybody else has any questions, please speak up, because we won't see you virtually for a while. But yeah, it's been an intense but fun few weeks. Covered a lot of topics, and I think we touched on a good amount of the games. I think you have a lot here. We have a lot here. So yeah, they can check these out on their own, decide which ones are for them or not for them. Maybe they'll see, but this is a good little anthology of games, a lot to choose from.
Yeah, and I think we'll be happy if we'll stick around a couple minutes if anybody a question comes to your mind. You want a more individual answer. But yeah, we can end a minute early, and I think you have the next 3 weeks without any workshops. Is that right, Kenny?
Yeah, I think we'll not be having workshops until the 24th, I think. But I'll need to double check the time. And then I think corners each side will have more information tomorrow too.
Great. So you get a little break from the workshops, focus on packing, getting everything together, having family and friend dinners, and just, it's going to become real very fast. Don't worry, Sean. You'll get here.
Yeah, it's going to be a very real quarantine room, quarantine hotel.
Thank you so much for all the workshops you all have been putting together for us. They're really, really helpful. And I imagine they take a lot of time to plan and put together. So thank you.
And we appreciate your active participation. You all have been fantastic. And I know a lot of it probably doesn't feel real yet. It's hard to process it all when you're not here. But hopefully, we're looking forward to these in-person workshops too. And once you have experience in the classroom, all these dots are going to be connected.
All right.
But yeah,
thanks,
I think
everybody.
Thank you.
I was just gonna say, you all have our emails too. If you guys ever have any other questions, we're here for you.